There weren't that much industrial products that they were producing, so U.S. had trade deficits, which meant U.S. periodically had deflation, hence depressions. Once the goods market adjusted, they had its surpluses, then it kind of was a cycle. But in the meantime, there's big boom and bust cycles. Let me see if I can get a graph of GDP growth. Let's see. I think this site has it. multpl.com. That's short for multiple. Let me see. US GDP growth rate. Unfortunately, it starts in 1930s, so maybe we can get, yeah. I'm sure they have some sort of chart. Now, okay, this is the actual GDP per capita. You see the big declines. 1884, this is 1873 crash, 84, 1890, 96, 1908, this is right around the war, so on and so forth. These are the recessions, the gray ones. They were rather severe. Once the gold standard was gone, actually the length of recessions have come down significantly. So that was the main problem with gold standard. Now, if you are a major player, typically these guys traded with each other. They didn't necessarily have that big trade surpluses and deficits, but a lot of smaller countries typically were net importers, and those guys had big time recessions. Okay? Among other reasons why the situation in Russia was so bad, Russia was perennially a country with trade deficits. This is before, so-called Krasny Oktyabr, the Red October. Technically speaking, that was in November, but why do you guys think that I call it in November? The Russian Bolshevik Revolution happened in, I think, 7th of November, 1917, but we always call that an October Revolution. Because Russian calendar is not Gregorian calendar. It's the Julian calendar. There's a 13-day difference between them. That's why the Orthodox Christmas is January 7th or 6th compared to December 25th. And those guys, they have leap years in Julian calendar, but there's a rule in leap years in Gregorian calendar. If it's a multiple of 100, you do not have a leap year, except if it's a multiple of 400. For example, the year 2000 had a leap year, February 29th, but the year 1900 did not, and the year 2100 will not have either. Basically, there were about 13 days, 13 years that should not have had leap years from the time of Julius Caesar that created the Julian calendar until 1582, the Gregorian calendar. That's why there's a 13-day differential. In 1582, the calendar jumped from October 1st to October 14th because they wanted to bring everything into seasons, because they wanted to make sure that Christmas was around the time where you had the equinox. Not equinox, I'm sorry. The other one. All right. Let me see, where were we? Gold standard. Now, as soon as the First World War started, of course, they didn't call it the First World War at the time. Anybody knows what that was called at the time? It was called the Great War. Okay? After the first one, we had no problem naming the second, because we recognized that, okay, this was a world war, and this is the second one of them. After the Great War started, think of yourself, Germany, France, England. US has not joined until 1917. What do you do in a war? What do you need in a war? You need ships, you need supplies, you need ammo, you need money to feed people, and where do you get the money under gold standard? You sell your gold, right? But there is only so much gold out there. There are two ways you can have money under gold standard. One is tax people more. Okay? So instead of 20% income tax, you're going to pay 30% to support the war effort, or you're going to borrow. But that's going to increase the interest rates. Given how expensive this war turned out to be, initially they actually borrowed money and increased taxes a little bit. But within a year, it was obvious that this thing was going to last for a while. And the only reason war ended in 1918, because essentially they ran out of resources. I mean, it was, if US had not joined the war, more than likely the British and France, or the Allied as they were called, they were going to run out of resources before the Germans and the Austrians would have. But since US came in with fresh resources, they were able to outlast Germans and the Austrians. And Russians also, Russia pretty much ran out of resources pretty fast. The poverty was so bad, among other reasons, it triggered the October Revolution. So, if you can tax people, or if you can borrow without actually sky-high interest rates, and what are you going to do? You're going to change the exchange rate between your currency and gold. So before, 1 ounce of gold got you 10 pounds. Now you're going to print more money. But the only way you could have that sustainable, either change the exchange rate or get out of gold standard completely. Well, if you do that, your opponents are going to do the same thing. Just because you devalued your currency, that doesn't mean you won. Germans and Austrians are going to do exactly the same thing. That means effectively gold standard was gone during the war times. And after the war, things got, relatively speaking, back to normal in Allied countries, because they won. But things were really crappy in the losers. We already had a Bolshevik revolution in Russia. Then there was the war between the Red Army and the White Army. And Russia was completely outside of the system anyway. Do you guys know what happened in Germany, Hungary, and Austria? Hungary and Austria were one country before the war. It was called the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. In fact, what is nowadays Czech Republic and Slovak Republic was also their territory. Croatia, Slovenia, and Bosnia-Herzegovina as well. They lost all of those, and Hungary itself became an independent republic. Austria became a republic. Do you know what happened in 1922, 1923 in those countries, as well as Germany?